Okay, y'all, first thing I want to say is don't feel bad if you don't play Apocalypse difficulty. A large percentage of players in this game are new. Just check this poll out. Only 9% play Apocalypse, and you can see where most of the other votes are. This elitist mindset is killing me. Oh yeah, and I don't think hugs is the meta, and I'll tell you why. But let's get into this build, fam. What I have for you is undeniable in the bleed department. In my first bleed build, there were a lot of comments and suggestions. What amulet I should use, and basically how damage works in general. Well, let me tell you, I've heard you, and I've taken a lot of those into consideration, along with the flavor of my own. My flavor, meaning a melee hack that revolutionizes the melee aspect in this game, along with some other goodies. So I appreciate all your support. Plus, I understand better now what the source of dishing out the most damage is. So the purpose of this build is to be the bleed king that gives 0 Fs about anything on the receiving end of my gun. So if you're interested in builds, guides, gameplay, and insightful discussions, then don't hesitate to like the video and subscribe if you're new here. This build has 2 playstyles, because what I've noticed, especially in Apocalypse difficulty, is that boss fights are way different from just fighting through mobs. Bosses don't follow 85% of the rules that mobs do. So the archetype combos are different based on which you're playing. I'll get into those in a minute. But let me tell you what's changed about this bleed build as opposed to the previous one. Firstly, it's primed for either Nightmare or Apocalypse difficulty, your choice. But instead of the Ravager's Mark for the amulet, I'm using the Abrasive Whetstone. This grants you crit chance and damage to the enemy while they're bleeding. This, by the way, is where the most damage lies in Remnant 2, crit, because it's multiplicative damage. So you want to build a solid foundation of that before trying to add all kinds of other bonuses. But I'm not using Hug's archetype combo, which is Gunslinger and Hunter, like so many players would suggest. I feel like Hugs is a glass cannon, and when using that, there's a very small margin for error. A lot of players are new and are still trying to get a grasp on what it takes to actually not get hit. But that's not the only reason I'm not using Hugs. Give me a second and I'll tell you. Because with the bleed build, the idea is to have the enemy always bleeding so that you can consistently deal that damage while they're afflicted. It's why my first archetype combo for the mobs is Gunslinger Handler. Meet the loaded Ridgeback. Did you know that your dog in the Handler archetype will make any enemy bleed when attacking? They also stagger the enemy and cause a distraction while you're doing your thing. This is essential since mobs kind of swarm you on another level in APOC. Plus, I didn't realize how insane the handler skills and perks were until now. All 3 skills have a single press, double tap, and wait. Guard dog, support dog, and attack dog. And the dog autonomously attacks anyone in its vicinity. But I suggest using the attack dog, which increases damage by a whopping 20% for all allies within 20 meters. Not only that, you gain another 12% from the pack hunter, and for the others, your overall movement speed and revive speed is increased. And finally, the handler's specific trait reduces friendly fire by 40%. Now I'm sure you know all about Gunslinger and its loaded prime perk. It's still one of the main reasons I'm using it for the main archetype, because using quick draw deals some amazing burst damage while instantly reloading all your weapons. But here's why I don't believe Hugs is the meta. This leads to my second archetype combo for boss shredding, Gunslinger Challenger. Yes, the skills I use are Bullet Storm, where all the power is unleashed for Gunslinger, increasing damage and reload speed for 20 seconds. Then Challenger's Rampage, where I go into Berserk mode, where fire rate and reload speed is increased even more, also movement speed. And as you're killing adds while dealing insane damage to the boss, up to 25% depending on how many stacks you gain. This is all up to your proficiency while in this state, and if you do that, then it doubles. This is crazy. I did try Hugs, and I tried this, and the Gunslinger Challenger combo just outshined it. Maybe Hugs is better for overall sustained DPS, but if you want to deal a lot of burst damage really quickly on a boss, then Gunslinger Challenger is the way to go. Also, Challenger's innate perks help with survivability to go along with the Gunslinger's all-out DPS style. Now the weapon I'm using with this is the Merciless again, and this long gun causes the enemy to bleed when the weapon reticle is fully compressed. And with the mutator called Momentum, when this weapon scores a critical hit, it increases crit chance and crit damage by 1.5% for 3 seconds. This has 10 stacks, and crits from this add 2 stacks. So when all the stars align with the amulet and rings I use, you will have up to 45% crit chance, maybe more, which means every other bullet will land a crit. Now the crit damage here is over 100%. Let me know how I can get that even higher, because crit damage is how much damage you deal with the crits, as opposed to how many you land. This is what I was talking about that deals damage in Remnant 2, crit. The items that you equip, like what increases damage, those are secondary, or what increases status effect damage, whatever else you want to put besides crit is secondary. You have to prioritize crit first if you want to have a solid damage base. Also, make sure you upgrade your relic fragments to max so you can get this insane damage bonus for range damage, fire rate, etc. I'm currently leveling mine up, but you have to do that on Apocalypse difficulty in order to yield the maximum results. There's something I forgot to mention earlier. Usually you have to wait about until half the magazine with the Merciless in order for them to bleed when the reticle is compressed, but not with how I have this set up. Remember, the dog will bleed the enemy, so you instantly get that damage. Also, this insane feature right here is what I was waiting to tell you about. It's how when throwing a melee weapon while having the blood jewel equipped will register as a charged melee attack, henceforth activating the bleed status effect on the enemy for 20 seconds. This makes it a viable solution to use something like the blood jewel, which requires you to be close and use a charged melee attack in Apocalypse. You don't have to do that. You can be as far as you want, but utilize a charged melee attack. And with the Krell axe, which I'm using for my melee weapon, when you throw it at the enemy, it causes an overloaded and applies the shock status effect. So with the blood jewel, they'll be bleeding and shocked at the same time while being vulnerable to the damage you deal from the Merciless after you hit them with it. This is all too insane, and you cannot pass this up. Not only that, the mutator on the Krell axe is called Misfortune, which increases melee damage by 5% for each unique status effect the target is suffering from, and charged melee attacks apply slow for 2 seconds. This is the perfect build setup. These are 2 other rings that I decided to go with. The Akari Warband, which pretty much guarantees that crit since evade rolls are essentially your defense in this game, and Stone of Balance. More damage is always great. Let me know about any other rings that you suggest for this build. Okay, you guys asked for the traits last time, which I didn't show, so here are the ones that I'm using. Siphoned is high priority for this build. You gain 3% base damage as lifesteal. This feels like a mini Dreadwalker from the Nightfall weapon, especially coupled with a low yield recovery ring, where killing an enemy regenerates 5% max health over 5 seconds. Additional kills increase duration by 5 seconds, and the max is 30. So you can essentially have a small heal over time for the duration of your playthrough. Also, bark skin, vigor, and endurance for help in surviving Apocalypse difficulty better. Finally, footwork for movement speed while aiming down sights. I highly suggest you make this build because it is very good and definitely helps you in higher level difficulties. I only see this build getting stronger. Once again, if you have anything to add to make it better, make sure you comment below. Also, like the video if it helped you, and subscribe to my channel if you're new here. I'll see you in my next video. Be right out.